The ambient lighting of Chez Laurent cast warm shadows across the white tablecloths as 36-year-old janitor Robert Chen nervously adjusted his one good shirt and waited for his blind date to arrive. He had been working the night shift at Whitmore Financial Tower for 3 years, and his co-workers had been insisting for months that he needed to get back out there after his divorce. What Robert didn't know was that his setup was intended as cruel entertainment. His co-workers had arranged for him to meet Sarah from accounting, but they had actually contacted 34-year-old CEO Elena Whitmore herself, telling her that one of her employees desperately needed cheering up and had requested to meet her for a motivational coffee. The deception had seemed harmless to the orchestrators, who expected either confusion or awkward rejection that would provide office gossip for weeks. They had no idea that their prank would reveal something profound about both participants. Elena arrived at the restaurant in her navy business dress, expecting to find a struggling employee who needed career guidance. Instead, she found Robert sitting alone at a table, clearly nervous and dressed in his best clothes for what he obviously believed was a romantic evening. As Elena approached the table, she quickly realized what had happened. The setup was obvious. Someone had played a cruel joke by arranging a fake date between the building's janitor and the CEO. She could see Robert's co-workers at a table across the restaurant, phones ready to capture what they expected would be an embarrassing encounter. "Robert," she said gently, extending her hand as she sat down. "You must be Sarah," Robert replied with a nervous smile, standing to pull out her chair. "Thank you for agreeing to meet me. I have to admit I was surprised when your friend said you'd be interested in going out with someone like me." Elena felt her heart clench as she understood the full scope of the cruelty. Robert had been told this was a genuine romantic setup, and he had clearly put effort into preparing for what he hoped would be a real connection. She had a choice: expose the prank and humiliate Robert, or find a way to handle the situation with dignity for both of them. "Robert, I need to tell you something important," Elena said quietly, noting how his co-workers were watching expectantly from across the room. "There's been some confusion about tonight." Robert's face fell as he prepared for rejection. "I understand. I know this probably seems ridiculous, someone like you going out with someone like me." "That's not what I meant," Elena said firmly. "Robert, I'm not Sarah from accounting. I'm Elena Whitmore. I own the building where you work." Robert stared at her in confusion and growing embarrassment as the implications became clear. "You're the CEO? But then why are you here?" Elena glanced toward the table of co-workers who were clearly enjoying what they assumed was Robert's humiliation. "Because someone thought it would be funny to set up a fake date between us. They told you I was interested in meeting you romantically, and they told me you needed career counseling." Robert's face flushed with shame as he understood he had been made the target of an elaborate joke. He started to stand, clearly planning to leave immediately. "Please don't go," Elena said, her voice carrying an authority that made him pause. "Not because of them, but because I'd like to finish our conversation. Ms. Whitmore, I'm so sorry you were dragged into this. I should have known it was too good to be true." Elena's response surprised everyone in the restaurant, including the co-workers who had orchestrated the prank. "Robert, I want you to listen to me very carefully," she said, her voice carrying across the quiet restaurant. "In 3 years of owning that building, do you know what I've noticed about you?" Robert shook his head, unsure where this was leading. "Every morning when I arrive early, I see the results of your work. The floors are spotless, the windows are clean, and everything is perfectly organized. More importantly, I've watched how you interact with people. You treat everyone with respect, from the executives to the delivery workers. You take pride in your work, and you make that building a better place for everyone who works there." Elena's voice grew stronger as she continued, and her words began to carry to other tables as the restaurant grew quiet. "The people who set up this prank tonight think they're superior to you because of their job titles or education. But they just demonstrated something important about character. They get their entertainment from trying to humiliate others, while you show up every day and do honest work with dignity." Robert was staring at her in amazement, unsure how to respond to such unexpected defense from someone he had never really spoken to before. "Ms. Whitmore, you don't need to—" "Yes, I do," Elena interrupted, her attention now focused on the co-workers who had organized the setup. "Because someone needs to point out that the most valuable employees aren't always the ones with corner offices. They're the ones who understand that every job matters and every person deserves respect. Elena stood up and walked over to the table where Robert's co-workers were sitting, no longer laughing but looking increasingly uncomfortable as they realized their prank had not gone as planned. "Gentlemen, I believe you work in my building," Elena said with the calm authority that had built her company from nothing into a major financial firm. "And I believe you orchestrated tonight's setup." The men shifted nervously, clearly recognizing her now and understanding that their joke had serious professional implications. "Did you really think it would be funny to humiliate a man who works harder and shows more integrity than any of you have demonstrated tonight?" Elena continued. "Robert Chen has been keeping your workplace clean and functional for 3 years, and your response is to make him the target of cruel entertainment?" One of the men attempted to justify their actions. "It was just a harmless prank. Ms. Whitmore, you thought it would be funny to prey on someone's hope for companionship and connection." Elena cut him off. "That's not harmless. That's cruel, and it says everything about your character and nothing about his." Elena returned to Robert's table, where he was still sitting in stunned silence, processing what had just happened. "Robert, I want to ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly." "Yes, ma'am?" "Would you be interested in joining me for dinner? Not because of any setup or prank, but because I'd genuinely like to get to know the person who brings such care and pride to his work every day." Robert looked at her with disbelief. "You want to have dinner with me, really?" "I want to have dinner with someone who has character and integrity," Elena replied. "In my experience, those qualities are much more rare and valuable than job titles or income levels." Over the next 2 hours, Elena and Robert shared a conversation that surprised them both. Robert told her about his divorce, his love of reading history books, and his pride in maintaining the building where people conducted important business. Elena shared her journey from struggling entrepreneur to successful CEO, and her loneliness at the top of a company where few people were willing to be genuine with her. "You know what's strange?" Elena said as they shared dessert. "I've been on dozens of dates with men who had impressive resumes and perfect credentials. But this is the first time in years I've felt like someone was talking to me as a person rather than as a business opportunity, and this is the first time I felt like someone saw value in who I am rather than just what I do for work," Robert replied. 6 months later, Robert and Elena were still meeting for dinner regularly, their friendship having grown into something neither of them had expected to find. Elena had also made significant changes at her company, implementing policies that emphasized respect for all employees, regardless of their position, and creating advancement opportunities for workers. Like Robert, who demonstrated character and reliability, the co-workers who had orchestrated the original prank had been transferred to other departments after Elena made it clear that their behavior was incompatible with her company's values. "You know what I learned from that night at the restaurant?" Elena said to Robert as they walked through the park near her office building. "What's that?" "That the most important connections in life often come from the most unexpected places, and that character matters more than status in determining who deserves our respect and attention." Robert smiled, thinking about how dramatically his life had changed since that night of intended humiliation. "And I learned that sometimes when people try to tear you down, they accidentally introduce you to someone who sees your worth." "The best part," Elena observed, "is that their cruelty backfired completely. They wanted to humiliate you, but instead they helped me recognize someone extraordinary who had been right under my nose the entire time." Sometimes the most meaningful relationships begin when someone chooses kindness over cruelty, and sometimes the people who seem least likely to connect discover they have the most important things in common: integrity, compassion, and the courage to treat others with dignity regardless of their circumstances. If this story reminded you that character matters more than status and that genuine connections can be found in the most unexpected places, please give it a like and share it with someone who understands the importance of treating all people with respect. Subscribe for more stories about finding value in authentic character. And let us know in the comments about a time when someone's attempt to humiliate another person revealed more about their own character than their targets. Sometimes the most beautiful relationships grow from the seeds of someone else's attempt at cruelty.